All right, Shalom. First and foremost, before I get started, I'm going to give all honor and glory and power to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rahakwadash. I want to say double honors to our elders, our great apostle, great millstone, GMS, who rule well and teach well, being a great example to Israel. All right, man, the elect. I want to say peace and blessing to the hope of the elect on the four corners, presenting the truth and sincerity. All right, the great song is your button to buy. All right, you got this little quick clip, basically, I remember Pastor Har, he did this years ago. It was like a one-hitter quitter. One precept knocked the whole video out. So I'm going to go to it. It's the Psalm 64 and 8. So they shall make their own tongues to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. Now this is an example. I'm going to show you their tongues falling upon themselves, how they stole, like I say, how Greeks stole Hebrew biblical books. Was the Greeks going to the Edomites. But I'm gonna let y'all hear for y'allself. Lord willing, y'all brothers to be edified. Take the meat from the bone.
Claim is that every book of the New Testament was written in Greek, which is insane because all the books of the Bible were written by Hebrews. All the books of the Bible were written by Hebrews, including the New Testament. So it just doesn't pass the smell test, right, that all of the authors were Hebrew and yet all of the originals were in Greek. But that is the claim. So we're looking at the New Testament, the Bible, through the Greek filter of another language, culture, and thought.
Roman Jews was to essentially steal the history of the real Messianic movement.
So it's going to take on Greek elements, and there's a lot of these. We'll get into them one by one, but it matters. And the reason we know is that it was not all written in Greek. The church fathers said so. There are 75 historical attestations that the Gospels were originally written in Hebrew. At least Matthew was originally written in Hebrew.
So how come we don't learn about this in like seminary and places like this, or even just in regular school
We are
history?
descendants of the Greek church. And the Greek church, Greek primacy of the Bible is an article of faith, right? So, so you have to, not only are there 75 historical attestations from the fathers, the founding fathers of the what we call the Christian church now, but there was no one who said it did not exist. No one said it did not exist. And among those 75 attestations, there are more than 80 quotations directly from the Hebrew Gospels. All right, so we're supposed to say, well, the modern view of it, and remember, the modern view is 2,000 years old. Now it's about almost 2,000 years later. Now they're saying, well, there never really was a Hebrew gospel. That was just mentioned by Papias, and everybody, kept saying the same thing instead of uprooting the error. But that's not true. It's not true that all of the early church fathers were either frauds or fools by mentioning the Hebrew gospels. That's what you have to think to erase all of the early historical evidence that there was a Hebrew gospel.
It's only to find. Now, first of all, I'm curious. So you knew there had to be more. Where did these other ones come from, if you can recall?
It originated from Cochin in India. It originated from Cochin in India, in the Kerala province in India. And this is where Thomas went in the first century and set up his ministry. Now, he would have taken, all the apostles would have taken the Hebrew Gospels with them. That was their word. There was no Greek Gospel when they had gone to all corners of the earth, really carrying the Hebrew Gospels with them. But we have a historical attestation that Bartholomew, pretty soon after that, the Bartholomew in the Bible, went to Cochin, India, went to Thomas's ministry and carried a copy of the Hebrew Gospels with him.
Now, this is not just legend. How do we know this?
This is historical attestation from the writings of the early church.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now, we also have went to India and brought a copy of it back to Alexandria. A copy of Hebrew Gospels back to Alexandria, where Origen used it in writing his famous Hexapla, which was the comparison of the extant Hebrew versions of the Bible, including the New Testament, a comparison of them with the extant Greek versions of the Bible. Now, the Roman Church didn't like Origen very much, so all of his research, the Hexapla, we have fragments of it, but it's pretty much disappeared. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but that tends to be the pattern.
You've clearly written a book on the subject.
That's true. That's right. But let's look at the evidence of it. So, the most important question you might think is, what are these Hebrew Gospels? We now have the manuscripts. We have had the manuscripts. These are new manuscripts. Are they authentic?
Right. How do we know? So Nehemiah goes in there and realizes that there's copies of the Hebrew Gospel in there.
Yeah.
And so there has to be more. I mean,
over 3,000 Hebrew New Testament manuscripts. Repeat that. Over 3,000 Hebrew New Testament manuscripts. And of the complete New Testament, from Matthew to Revelation, total pages, total manuscripts is over 3,000. So that's half, or just over half, of what the Greek have, of what the Greek New Testament has, and we've discovered these within the last few years. So these need to be taken seriously. These aren't just a few pages that some people suggest, or a one copy from one hand. These are multiple copies from multiple scribes, totaling on each page, of course, over 3,000.
Roman Jews was to essentially steal the history of the real Messianic movement.
And Lord willing, y'all brothers, sister edified. Next time, Shalom, Ababa Barak Hayake.